Today we're talking art and faith with Don Clark. He is the co-founder and lead artist at Invisible Creature, a studio near Seattle. Him and his brother Ryan formed it in 2006. You can see Don's work featured in the USPS stamps, posters for NASA, the aisles of Target, books for Pixar, walls of Warby Parker, and the New York Times. Just lots of these different venues. What's consistent is the work is always really good and cool. Don and Ryan, they started out in the 90s creating album artwork for various punk metal, hardcore bands, but over the past 25 years, that roster of musicians just kept growing, Foo Fighters, Kendrick Lamar, Lecrae, Billy Idol, Korn, and countless others. Invisible Creature, their company, has been nominated for 4 Grammys, and there's so much great work, and it's just gotten better and better, in my opinion. And Don Clark has so many cool illustration projects as well, but one project that really jumped out to me is this children's book called The Biggest Story Bible. So this book is not only a work of art, but I really believe it's God's hands were all over it. So it's not, I guess, a translation of the Bible, but a paraphrase is the term there to use. But man, it really just makes these Bible stories clear, and it's also clever, and it's fun, and it's meaningful. And even for, my kids love it. Kids love it in general, but parents really love to read it too. And him and his brother, I feel if you look at just the stuff they've made, it's people who delight in creating. And I would really say a lack of fear in what they create, and a delight in play. Maybe that's the other side of the coin, but they'll make cool products because they want to make them and because they're cool, So hats, books, and toys, heavy metal music that wins awards, games, posters, and you can look on their website and just look. They even sell it directly. They have people who collect the stuff directly from them, Invisible Creature. But even all that aside, it's just Don feels such a down-to-earth guy and very open about his faith. He's a father. He's a husband. They live on a farm in the Northwest, which sounds like a dream. And they run the studio out of there. He talks about God, kind of how he rescued him and how he's guided him. I just really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will too. So let's talk art and faith with Don Clark. When or how did God become real, for you?
My dad was a pastor, so it was kind of, always in our house, and it was just something that was part of our life. And so, we went to church and all those things. I think one of the cool things, actually, in hindsight, I think looking back, is my parents weren't really, they weren't hard at us in regards to memorizing scripture, and they didn't make it homework, and they didn't make it seem like it wasn't fun, or it was just part of our life. And so I honestly think that that's a huge part of why I'm still, I think, walking with the Lord today, is that it was never something that felt was a job or something we had, chores, or something like that. So but there was as a kid, it's hard to kind of make your own decisions in that regard. You're still just figuring stuff out, and you're under your parents' roof, and you're a dependent. And so, one of the biggest catalysts for us was music. We in the mid '90s, we found kind of Christian punk rock, I guess you would say. And so, that was kind of fusing this foundation that we had at home, which was Christian beliefs, and all of that mixed with there's these tattooed, guys and gals out there touring and playing music, and they're singing about Jesus. This is crazy, So on one hand, it was the rebellious side, which was as a pastor's kid, I had that in spades.
Yeah.
And then also just oh, wow, okay, so that's interesting. And they're playing with non-Christian bands and vegan bands and straight edge and atheist and evil and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And every band was getting their moment on stage, really, and it was, for the most part, really respectful. If you had stage time, you were allowed to say whatever you wanted to say. And if you're a Christian band, those bands would get up and kind of talk about their faith, and some people would heckle, but they'd get their time. And so it was really kind of this cool scene where everyone kind of respected each other. And I used to say it kind of made Christianity cool, I guess, because it was we were becoming friends with people from all different walks of life in this scene. So I got baptized when I was 14, so that was, I guess you could say, maybe that's kind of when I decided to actually go for it. So that was before all this. But Yeah, I've always felt like a real sense, a calling, I guess you could say, from an early age, as long as I can remember. And then made this faith my own. I think in my late teens, and um, yeah. So that's the short version, I guess.
In some ways, punk rock is a great place for
Hmm.
faith because, especially in those environments, it is against the norm or against the
Hmm.
current in some ways.
Yeah, and I feel like the aggression and angst and all of that as a young as a young man, it all just really it was the perfect outlet for that. We're all at that age going through stuff, whether you're a believer or you're not, and it was like a really cool outlet for that. So yeah, I was super thankful for that. I mean that time laid the foundation for everything I'm doing now. I met my wife at a dirty punk rock show, in a house. We've been married 27 years, and so and you were talking about Asterisk, my first company. That all came from just knowing other band guys, and so yeah, it's amazing.
That's cool. Very cool. Is there a moment in there that he just showed up in a big way? I mean, it also sounds like too, like there was a good foundation for you and your desires to create and even punk rock and stuff. There's families in the Midwest that wouldn't let their kids, go anywhere
Yeah,
near there,
totally. Yeah,
So it sounds
totally.
like a good environment. But even just as you get older and have a family, like, yeah, I'm just curious, is there ways that you feel like you see the Lord show up or like kind of rescue you guys in a way? I know for me, like my first few years of marriage was like a big like mirror in my face of like
Yeah,
everything I
totally.
needed to like I was dealing with that I could just
Oh
go
yeah.
away and cope, and then all of a sudden I'm like I can't go away.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Dude, I mean, I'm fit. I just turned 50, so I was married at 23, and I'm a completely different person now. So, and so is my wife. And so by the grace of God, we still love each other, and we're, I think we've raised three kids. We have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and
dang, man,
it's been amazing. Like the only reason we're still married is our faith.
it's cool.
Yeah, in regards to your question, like I feel like my big answer to that's kind of more of like an ethereal one, but it's like um I've tried to pursue I've tried to pursue holiness, I guess. I've pursued the heart of Christ, and I do it, and I'm obviously terrible at it. But what I've noticed is as I've done that and tried to stay close to him, these opportunities have come up, and not just professionally, but in my family, in regards to just how I lead, how I'm a father, how I'm a husband. And so
Totally.
it's really like the question of has he shown up for me? It's like, yeah, in every walk of life, just because I've tried to stay close. And, and you know, I don't really necessarily believe we seek God. I think God in the end, that's obviously a highly debatable topic, but I do think that like God is called us. And so I just his grace has just been just insane, from my personal family life to my work life. And I do see it as kind of like, I think a lot of people like to separate, say, family, personal life here, work. I've been really blessed to kind of have it all be kind of mixed in together. My studio has been at home for 20 years. So I've been able to, watch my kids grow up and be available to them throughout the day. And so it's all kind of, even if you look at our work, a lot of it has like been during these child rearing ages, which is, I'm working on Lego stuff and my kids are into Lego, or
That's
I'm
awesome.
doing this and that. So it's been like this really kind of cool. They've been my muse, I guess you could say, for, since I've had kids. So, um, yeah, man, it's just the grace of God is just something that I feel like tenfold. So
That's awesome. Man, I feel so similar. Like I feel like I used to travel all the time for commercials and jobs. And then I feel like as soon as I got married, for whatever reason, it was all local work in LA, which was great.
Yeah.
And then having kids, I just shot a Legoland commercial.
Dude, awesome.
I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
nothing makes you more of a hero than shooting a
Oh, I
Legoland
know.
commercial.
How old are your kids?
9 and 5.
Oh, dude, yeah, that's
Yeah,
perfect.
prime Lego.
Prime Lego. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's so
But
cool.
I do feel like the Lord, he shows up not just work, but it's just like in every aspect. But
Yeah.
it's cool. In your work, is there an aspect of it that feels like this is like the most life giving part? Like I'm called to it or something? Is there?
I love that question because my answer is people on that one. It's
Mm,
I was thinking about that for a second because man, I love my job, but like if there were no people involved and I didn't develop these relationships, then it's just me in the studio working on stuff that's just, is uh, it really is kind of like it it's the relationships with my clients and my clients have become friends, some of my best friends. And so um that is kind of the one through line I think that I I work alone already, and you probably do too in a capacity for sure. And so that already is kind of a lonely thing if you're
yeah,
just in the studio working. But getting excited about a project with another human being is like very, very cool, and making something for someone else that they're gonna then show the world is really, really cool. And if I think if you took that away, I would just kind of be miserable. So that was a good question.
that's cool. That's not the answer I was expecting, and yet I love that
Yeah,
answer, and it rings true. Like when I first moved to LA, I was like, I will outwork anybody. I
totally.
will
Oh yeah,
get
I
up
had that.
early, and
Yep,
and I did that
I
for
was like that.
years.
Yeah,
And I just became miserable. Like no
yeah.
community, no no real relationships,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
like, it's the flavor of life. It's with people. Like I don't really care
Yes.
about any of this anymore. you know.
100%. I think the older you get, you realize that. Absolutely. Like my mother passed away 2 years ago, and that was like a huge kind of like catalyst for, now what my life now and like who I am now post, my mother's death. So I think
Wow.
like you realize all we have really are our friends and family in the end, right? And so, in my 20s and 30s and even my early 40s, I'm just, you're focused on grinding, building this thing, supporting your family, being creatively fulfilled while also trying to make money at it.
Yeah.
Um, and you turn your hobby basically into a career, and you're like, oh man, this is not, it's not as necessarily as where I thought it would be in terms of joy. Um, and then you get to a point where you're like, oh, wow, it's all like this is now totally secondary, all this stuff that I was working towards. And I'm thankful that I did it. I'm thankful that I got to that point. But um, to keep to have that mindset, I think going forward is just like an impossibility. It's just there's, just hanging out with my friends sitting at a restaurant is maybe my favorite thing, or with my family in the living room. So um, yeah, it all that stuff really puts life into perspective. I think once you kind of go through some actual hard life things, you and I get
Totally.
to make things for a living. We get paid to make things. That's a blessing, and we're very rare. It's a very rare thing to be able to do that. So, um, this kind of like mantra that artists are saving the world or whatever. I don't buy it. I'm just like, man, I get to draw pictures and get paid for it. That's awesome. But I'm not, I might put a smile on some people's faces for like a split second, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's cool. So I think I kind of came to this place where first I was like, oh, for God called me to film. And then after kind of like crashing and burning, crippling depression, and then like feeling like the Lord rescued me from it and sort of like gave it up, then I felt
Hmm.
like I was in the other side of the camp where I was like, oh, this is like a shallow pursuit.
Hmm.
Um, and then only over time, like I felt like the Lord was like, oh, it's time to start doing this. And I was like, uh, it- but it doesn't matter. And then I'm all of a sudden like I realized like my internal logic is like saving lives, ministry, then is everything else kind of shallow? And I felt like that was a struggle of mine for a while.
Hmm.
And I feel like my views on it have changed, but I'd be curious for you to hear of like I agree in the sense that like we're not saving the world, but what is the importance of art? Is there a logical argument for art being
Mm.
important?
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously art is it's one of the things that it's an attribute from God that he doesn't give to any of his other creations. And if an animal is creating art, it's by accident, right? So I feel like, man, we're so blessed to be able to share in that attribute. So it's extremely powerful. And whether it's film, music, a painting, for me, obviously, I think for me, film is the most emotional, just um, form of art. Um, so it plays a massive role, and I've been blessed to work on some Bible related projects, and people have said that they've been brought to tears by just flipping through the pages. And what's interesting is I'm like, man, I was close to that while I was working on it. I was like, I can't believe, I don't know. As
Yeah.
I was working on the book, I was like, I can't even believe I'm able to do this, and that this is like it's coming out, you know, I guess better than I expected, which is kind of
Yeah.
weird. I would go back and redo pages and stuff, but in the end, it was like I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, I can't believe I was able to be part of this. But
It is really great, by the way. Just say it
oh,
out
thank you,
loud. I always hate talking about my
thank you,
own work, but like it's really good. It's really, really good.
thank you,
So
dude. So
yeah.
I see, like it's a good question because there is that um this kind of like I don't know, greater's not the word, but this calling as an artist and these things that I get to make. But it's also just in reality what it is just who, my life and the people that are in my life and who I'm around, the people at my church, my close friend groups, my neighbors. That's really who I'm kind of around, and
Yeah.
that I can actually tangibly help. We moved to Arizona about a year ago because my wife's parents are in their 80s, and we wanted to, for various reasons, wanted to get down here, but also just to one big one was to be able to help them. And that you know that's really kind of the most important stuff, right? I mean, I get to work on these cool things. That's awesome. But I'm also taking, my 85-year-old father-in-law to his doctor's appointment, and he needs my help, and so
Totally.
like, and it feels like I would have never even thought about that 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Like that's something I would be interested in doing, but it's really become something I'm not only glad to do it, it's like it's part of a purpose now that I have to be here to help with them, and my wife is the same way. So it's been like it, I think it kind of piggybacks off your question. There's kind of like the broader thing. Okay, you're making these films and things like that, and that is affecting people on an emotional level. But then who's in your life that's actually like affected by Nathan as a person? And so I think those are like two distinct things that are important. But I honestly think the your circle, your close circle, is the most important thing. I mean, that's really how humans have lived for a millennia. It just so happens now that we can broadcast our stuff to the world now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, good question.
Yeah, that's so true. I know the idea of like hustle culture and empire building is like really
Yeah, yeah,
loved
yeah.
online,
I know
but it's like, yeah, how do
that
your
empire's
kids
gonna
feel
crumble,
about
buddy.
you? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. What does your kid say about you? Yeah.
Yeah. So even thinking into some of those projects, like you mentioned the Bible one you did, but is there a project that you feel like specifically proud of that sticks out to you that you would have people go check out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest story products, the books that I've done are probably, yeah,
Yeah,
they're up there. I mean, not just because, I mean, a huge part of it is because of my faith, but also it's people have resonated with it and have really enjoyed it. Um, but there's some other ones that are just, that I was able to work with some amazing bands over the years, and have created some um, huge permanent installations around the nation. It's been those are really really cool. But I think like, and I never saw this coming at all when I was even working on the Bible. But I do think that will probably be like, the legacy piece. Like in
cool.
30 years or whatever, when I'm 80 or whatever, I think that'll probably be the one that um, will mean the most to me, and I think just like will be the thing maybe that I'm remembered for in the art world. But
That's cool.
yeah, dude, I honestly I get to work with so many cool people and so many cool projects. I just like I pinch myself still that I get to do this for a living and just make things that are just fun and cool for cool people and brands. So, um, but yeah, I think if I had to choose one, it'd be the Bible for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, it seems like a pretty good answer, you know?
Yeah, 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 exactly. It's kind of
No,
low hanging fruit. Yeah.
no, it's good though. It's very cool. I feel like, uh, to all the years of experience, I feel like that's almost something you could like you've built up to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, I would have never been able to do that early on. I don't even think I'd be interested in doing it. I think, in fact, Crossway came to me asking if I knew anyone that wanted to do it, and and I actually threw it out there, like, what if I did it? So it was more or less like selfishly wanting to see something on the shelf that I wanted to see, that I
Totally.
thought was lacking.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how that all started. I wasn't even up for the job. They wanted to know if I had any ideas.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. Do you feel like the Holy Spirit plays a role in the creative process or like inspiration or even in the making stuff process?
yeah, I think that the Holy Spirit plays roles in absolutely everything I do. So the default answer, I think, would be yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. My inspiration levels just ebb and flow in regards to how busy I am. You know, if I'm finding myself in I'm sure you are too. I'm finding myself in a real creative spot right now because I've hired a project manager and I'm working with more illustrators and artists now, and um, I'm at that point where I'm overseeing a lot of things, so I'm able to kind of go come up with new ideas, and I've
You have some margin.
seeing yeah, I have some margin exactly, and so it's I've never I mean I've never really had that where I'm kind of like it's always just me doing a thing, and over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to kind of build a thing where we have like partners and people helping out, which is really really cool. That has allowed me to kind of be more creative. So, um, but yeah, it's an interesting question. I think like again, it just goes back to like how you see the world and how your viewpoint on everything. And if God is sovereign, then He's sovereign over inspiration. So
Totally.
yeah,
More than ever, I was thinking about, I think C.S. Lewis has a quote that's like, either nothing's a miracle or everything's a miracle.
yeah,
You got to
totally,
choose one,
yeah,
you know? And,
yep, yep.
um,
Yeah, I had a C.S. Lewis quote on my desk for years. I can't find it because we moved, but it said, "The world doesn't need any more Christian artists or writers. The world needs more artists and writers that are Christian." I've always just like resonated that with that big time. He's one of my heroes for sure.
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Someone was saying Christian like works way better as a noun than it does as an
yeah,
adjective, you
totally.
know? So
Yeah,
like Christian, great. Film, great. Christian
yeah,
film, probably not
yeah,
great.
exactly. Yeah, totally. 100%, 100%. Yep.
Do you have any like spiritual practices that you've found fruitful?
Yeah, church for sure on Sundays. We prayer is huge. I go to the gym, and gym is a time where I'm just like on the way to the gym, I'm praying, and while I'm there, just kind of like trying to focus on the important stuff. And it's a good kind of like reset in the day. I actually been going to the gym in the middle of the day, which has been really cool because I I used to just like get up early in the morning, go do that, go to work, and it's been kind of this cool like almost resetting the day after that.
Totally.
So that's been a cool kind of thing. But yeah, just being in community with people in our church and, just finding a church. There's no perfect church. Just show up to the church on your road, on your street. It's just
Totally.
like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I spent so long I was like bouncing around community groups in Los
Hmm.
Angeles essentially I was looking for like people I thought that were like going to be my best friends and I
Yes.
thought were
Yeah.
cool.
Uh-huh.
It's not like the worst thing, but it's just not the order it works. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, no, and I did the same thing. We went to the cool churches and all that stuff, and then those all, a lot of them crumbled. So yeah, it's just like yeah, the church is made up of people, and people are flawed, and so if you leave one church, you're going to go to another one. They're going to have problems too. So God has really protected me from cynicism in that regard,
that's good.
and it's been like really life giving.
That's awesome. That even that topic reminds me of like um I was just so for the film I short film I just made and Nathan Englehart was there.
Oh,
but
cool.
we were doing it's probably like half atheists in the room and half believers. And
Yeah,
I wasn't nervous at all about showing the film, but like this Q&A, I know they're going to ask me about the origin
sure.
of this film. And I'm like, how am I going to talk about this? And I really, what kept coming to my mind is about like, for those who don't believe, like people just don't let imperfect people decide how you feel about a
Totally.
perfect God, you know?
Totally. Totally,
Um,
man. That's a
but
huge thing.
I've had a tension of work in the industry I work in. I'm probably more inclined like people pleasing vibes in
Hmm.
general.
Oh yeah,
So
me too.
that's kind of been like I like want to be authentically honest and like be a real person and like it's such a huge part of my life and my family life and my community group. But then also feeling that I don't want to be like preaching at people and two I'm on set too. I'm not sure what your patterns are as much as work, but has that been a thing for you or like a tension there of like talking about your faith at all, or has it been? Yeah, I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, I think like I walk that same, I think, a bit of a tightrope as you do. I work a lot with just all kinds of people and companies, and um, I I think you said it. Just I really try to be authentic as I can. And if it gets into a point where like, hey, we're talking about faith, or they're asking me actual personal questions or whatever, awesome. But that's after they kind of get to know me and we're kind of chatting around. But yeah, I think if you're just true to yourself, and just um, being open and honest, like people don't have any problem with that. I think
Right.
like I'm a I think politics is the one caveat that is like is just like I just don't discuss that. Is I think now
Same.
and more than anything,
Yeah.
now more than anything, that's just something that's there's this like fear of no neutral ground, and I'm like, well, no, I want to have neutral ground in that regard. I don't that there I,
Yeah.
um so I'm a Jesus guy, and like get to know me, we'll talk about that. But like um because I know and love so many different people, it's just something that like if it comes up, awesome. But I think we are unashamed, and we talk about our faith anytime anyone asks, and it's woven throughout our website. And
Yeah.
so I think there is kind of like, I think folks already kind of know, if they've kind of been following us, they for sure know.
Yeah.
We started a band in the early 2000s that kind of took off, and that was in the Christian market. So
Is Demon
yeah,
Hunter, right?
yeah, Demon
Yeah.
Hunter, yep.
Cool. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's just it's all part of who we are, but it's not I don't think it's loving to lead with that, and just to be like, hey, what's up? How's your walk?
It's
Whatever,
just
like,
maybe a little
you know,
strange.
yeah, yeah, super strange. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And I think
Yeah.
like, there's amazing just organic gospel opportunities all day long if you just like let it happen as opposed to trying to push it. So
Totally. That's
yeah.
good. Um, Kind of jumping back into the work, is there any patterns you find to like when you get inspired?
Yeah, that was a good question. So what I guess when I was thinking about that question, I was like, you know what, the pattern is probably like my family, and kind of like
Mm,
when I'm it's kind of like to my detriment. What I do is I'll come up with an idea based on something that my kids are into, and then I'll make this fun idea into a business, or or like
yeah.
somehow, and like, oh, we should do this, and then it kind of like, it doesn't suck the fun out of it, but it's just kind of like I'm inspired by so much stuff that it's my wife and my daughters are into rodeo, and we do a lot of horse related stuff. We have 4 horses out here, and so
Oh, cool.
that's like this thing that I kind of married into and fell into. And I'm not a cowboy, but I absolutely love that culture, and just like the cowboy ethic and everything. So we have a big thing in that world that we're rolling out in the next few months. And it started off though as like, I just love my girls, and now it's turned into this huge thing. So
That's cool.
it's really fun. But my answer to that question is like, um, I think I like creating things that are based around people I love, in a weird way.
Yeah.
Whether that's music, working on, it all started with music, and then kind of became, my family is my muse or whatever. So that's my answer to that question, I think.
That's cool. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like that's answers on a deeper level too.
Yeah.
I feel like one thing that you and Ryan have done that has always stuck out to me is like, it seems to be this, like, let's just do it, let's just make it. Like for you to like start selling branded products of your own things. And also, it's like, A, it looks really fun. And B, there's something to that mindset, which is like, we can do this. And yeah, it feels very like, in some ways, like, I don't know if optimistic is the word I'm looking for, but it
Yeah,
just seems
no, it's
like
good.
you're
Yeah,
like, why not? You know?
yeah,
And that's not super normal. I feel like I don't see that as much. Do you feel like that came from anywhere? Is that like your
yeah, dude.
parents or?
That's a great question. No, I honestly think that that came from band life and
Mm,
basically merch. Merch is just such a. I think like my son and I are into heavy metal, and he's like an amazing guitar player, way better than I am now. And he's 19, which is crazy.
well,
But we we were talking about the other night, we're like, with metal, it's like 50% of this stuff we love is like the merch. And you know what I mean? Like the
yeah,
logos and the merch and then the rest of it is the music and the live show. So I think with Invisible Creature, all I know it's really like it comes from that kind of band mentality of just like making cool stuff. We also wanted to come up with a name. We were very like um uh focused on coming up with a name that sounded cool, that was not like something studio. It was just going to be this ambiguous thing that we could make whatever we wanted to. And yeah, and there's no one we have to ask. It's just like, hey, let's make
totally.
something. We don't do large runs of stuff because that's just, that we know our audience. We know that we're going to make like 100 of this thing and it'll sell and we'll make our money back and it's fun to do.
Yeah,
Um, um, so yeah, we feel like I've always felt like if we like it, then a few other folks will like it. It doesn't have to be if thousands or anything like that, but just like if there's a few other people that want to buy it, it gives us the reason to just make it. So it's the same with objects or anything that we kind of put out onto our site. And we do low runs of stuff just because we don't want to have stuff sitting on the shelf and kind of like keep making new things. So um and we have people that kind of collect everything we make, which is super cool. But it's a relatively small group of people, but it's so fun. And it's one of those things that it leads to commercial work. We'll do
totally
something for
believe that.
ourselves, and then a client will be like, I want that. But we're
Yeah,
gonna make 5,000. So it's super cool.
that's super cool. I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest lessons I had. There's a director named Solomon Ligtelm. He was on here, and but one thing he was talking about was he's like, oh, I would say the majority of what's on my website is passion project or
Hmm.
like a director's cut to the point where like the client wants nothing to do with this cut,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, totally, yeah.
And he's like, and that's like my whole career is from making
Yeah,
things
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have passion and excited about, you know?
Well, I agree 100%. And that's like it's something I tell young artists too. And I'm like, just put the stuff up that you are excited about doing. If you put up this huge, proposal that you design or whatever, let's just say you did like this massive brochure for this massive company or something, like, okay, just, put Nike in the client list, but don't show that. Show the
Yeah,
stuff that like, you have fun doing and you'll get that work. And it's also just a true representation of who you are, like the kind of stuff that you like. So yeah, I agree. I can't agree more.
it's cool. I'd be interested to hear. Have you ever had to like turn down work because of like, convictions of any sort? Like, be like, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah, totally. Not as of late. I mean, probably not in the last 10 years, but for sure in the early days, we'd uh, we'd get asked to do stuff all the time for bands and
Mm,
you know entertainment type stuff that would just those are easy really to kind of say no to. There's some that were like more, you know, uh from a conscious standpoint, like what is the band known for? What are they like singing about? We're usually pretty like cool with like artistic expression in that regard
yeah,
when it comes to bands, but sometimes it's like over the top and those are easy. But yeah, it definitely happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there any spiritual advice you'd give like your younger self? I know as you have kids and a 19-year-old, maybe you find yourself giving it already, but is there anything that you would say like you needed to hear at like
Yeah,
25
gosh.
or somewhere in there, 20s?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, at 25, I was such an idiot. I would just like, I would be like, dude, stay the course, man. Stay the course. Be patient. The hard stuff that you're gonna run into in life is going to build you into a better man, and it's gonna build you into a more empathetic and loving husband and father. And you know, 25, you're just like, dude, nothing matters except for my career and what I'm doing today. So
Totally.
I would be like, just man, stay close to God and just stay the course. So
Yeah.
yeah, good question.
That's good. Similar to myself, unfortunately, I'm like, knowing me, I probably wouldn't have taken the advice, but that's
Yeah,
probably what I need
totally.
to
I'm like, who's this
do.
guy showing up? Like, yeah, he looks
Yeah.
a lot like an older version of me, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you too. I feel like I find a lot of, especially men believers, who are sort of like apprehensive towards ambition or kind of suspicious of it. Well, what's your relationship to ambition like? Do you see it as like a God given thing, or do you see it as something you have to keep in check? Or
That's a great question. I think that I that ambition is just it's always been in me, and it's just I'll swap the word out for just inspiration. And I just like,
Mm,
you know, whether it's watching, the Bones Brigade skateboarding or Star Wars or, like baseball as a kid, like I just wanted to live in those worlds and make stuff. And so that coupled with the healthy reality that all this stuff is going to be dust, right? So everything behind me, it's all going to be in a landfill, and understanding that that's okay and going, okay, this is the stuff that I like to surround myself with right now. It's extremely inspiring. It means nothing in the grand scheme of things. I had a friend actually tell me one time, and this like totally, I don't know where he heard it, but he's like, I remember actually. We had like a nice chair in our house. Like when I was in my 30s, we had like this Eames chair, and the kids were scratching it all up. And I was like getting frustrated that I had bought this chair before we had kids, and
yeah.
a friend of mine was like, I read somewhere that if you have a problem with your chairs getting scratched up or anything getting scratched up, that you have a problem with death. And I was like, dude,
Ooh, it's deep.
that is deep, man. And it's so true. It's like this is just a chair. And also it should be scratched. These scratches show the wear and tear of my family's life.
Yeah.
So nothing, we can't hold on to any of this stuff, and it's all gonna, essentially burn. So I think that there is this like, I've tried to retain this healthy dose, a healthy like balance of extreme inspiration, based on just my surroundings and the people I love, and just things I saw as a kid, from an artistic standpoint, and just also just the reality that like life is fleeting, and we're called to a greater purpose, and life on this earth is fleeting, but life is actually forever. You have to have all those things in perspective. I think that's also something I've tried to teach my kids too. It's like, hey, with my son wanting to go into music, as soon as he wanted to pursue that, I was all in, but it was also like, hey, dude, here's all the pitfalls, man. We can go to these shows, we can go hang out with the bands and stuff, but dude, let's talk about all the lead singers that have killed themselves. Let's talk about all like family
Yeah.
life, trying to have a family as a touring musician, and the 23 hours that you're not on stage. What is that like?
Totally.
So it's been like it's always like two things can be true at once. It's this awesome like form of art that's exhilarating, and I get to play in front of people, and it's meaningful, and people write letters about it, and how much their songs mean to you. But then also just like it's don't drink the Kool-Aid. Like it's not the end all. And so like I think just healthy balance in that regard is huge.
That's good. So
Yeah.
good. Makes me think of there's this pastor guy, Tim Keller, that I like a lot, and he was
Huge
talking
fan.
about yeah,
Yeah, rest in peace.
yeah. He's talking about misordered loves. And I feel like this is
Mm,
a great way of talking about it, where it's just
yeah,
like these can all be great things. It just they have to be in the right order, and that pretty
a
much is
hundred percent.
and it can
A
be a
hundred
blessing
percent.
and a gift if it's in the right order, and if it's not, it can literally destroy you. you know,
Yeah, for sure. I think like early on with my collecting like uh hobbies, I started with, I think I started collecting baseball cards, and then that got into Star Wars figures, and then as I got older, it's just like, all this stuff that I love. Um there is this sense of, man, I want to surround myself with like things that make me feel good and feel safe. Like almost like in my bedroom as a kid, I'm playing with my, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like my happy place. You have to kind of like deconstruct out of that and go, okay, yes, I think some of that is definitely, true. Uh, but man, as soon as I'm gone, these things are going to be out at a garage sale. And so just like like I think it has to dawn on you to be like, oh yeah, okay. And I think once you have that realization, then that's true for everything, whether it's my house or anything that I own. It's just like I'm borrowing this house while I live here. Yeah, I mean while I'm alive. You know what I mean? I
Totally.
own it on paper, but it's not really mine. So I think it's just like super important to have all that stuff, you know, dialed into the brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like being married and then having kids made me end up like just verbal saying stuff, more things out loud and communicating more when I
Totally.
was more internal? And I feel like it has actually sort of dramatically changed a lot of like the work I do and also my beliefs. Didn't realizing there's sort of like these like beliefs aren't true, but you kind of just keep them in because you've never said them out
And then your
loud.
and then your kid asks the question, "Where do we go when we die?" Yeah,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, do you feel like that? How is like being a father and a husband affected your belief system and your maybe your artwork as well? Maybe choose whatever question in there jumps out.
Mhm.
But
100%. I mean, I love that you brought that up because like, yeah, we just kind of go through our lives, just everything's internal, or you're verbalizing with your friends or your wife, and then you have these little humans and they're like asking these questions. You're like, oh, actually, I don't think I've ever said that out loud. Like
yeah,
when they're asking. So it's like Jim Gaffigan has this sketch where he's like his kids like, Daddy, what's that stick on the top of the car? And he's like, that's not a stick, that's an antenna. And then his kid goes, what's an antenna? And he goes, it's a stick. so, so it's like
yeah,
it's those kind of questions come up. Man, I think like in the end it has to be something that strengthens me because I've had to go, just look up answers or look up scripture. I think like we bought a farm 14 years ago and we didn't know what we were doing at all. And I was like on YouTube and just trying to figure out how to all do all this stuff, but with our family. Like it was like a really,
it's cool.
a cool thing we were all going through with little kids trying to figure this out. But um dude, all of that has strengthened me in every possible way. Just even talking with clients or being like, just I think half of this job is just understanding how to talk with humans. Maybe that's going to go away eventually, but I think just like
I think it's gonna double up.
no,
I think we're
yeah,
gonna like
probably,
only want to talk to a
probably.
human.
Oh, dude, you're right. But I think just like social situations, conversations, and stuff like that. Just having kids. Like you're at the park with your son, and then all of a sudden you're talking to a parent. You're like, I didn't plan on talking to this person today, but here we are.
yeah,
um,
totally.
but yeah, no, I think all that stuff is just like it's just sharpening the iron for sure in like every aspect.
I had this moment when I've realized I felt like I could pass a lie detector test. I felt like God was calling me to make this thing, like this film. And then I also had this belief bouncing around my mind that like I said, like this is kind of like shallow work. Like I also have a community group. We're super involved in the church. Like it really is kind of its own ministry.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, this is important. And I realized I almost never talk about filmmaking. I already live in LA, and like the last thing I want to do is be the guy at community group who's
Sure.
like talking
Yeah.
about his films,
Totally.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
uh, but I felt like there was this idea that this is shallow, and so I remember just mentioning this to my wife, and she's like, "So you feel like you could for sure say God called you to do this,
But that
and
is
then you think
shallow.
it's shallow?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Huh, I never
That's a
thought
good
about it
point.
that way."
Totally a good point. I know. I think that there's also this, we like to, artists, I think, we second guess ourselves all the time. We don't
Totally.
even like what we did last week, so it's just, it's also especially hard when you're putting your soul out there on the, you're putting your, everything you have on this project and it's not,
Totally.
and it's in exchange for money. So it's like, okay, I need to, it's a representation of me, and then if you don't like it, well then my feelings are hurt, and what does that say about me? Like you have to just like play all these different games. I think there is like self, um uh not hatred or anything, but just kind of like second guessing like what you're
Yeah,
what your calling is. That happens I think like imposter syndrome in a real way is like a really healthy thing actually, because it kind of just um keeps you hungry and kind of moving and kind of like uh, wanting to one up your last thing. And I think if you've ever kind of like every artist I've ever talked to that I love and respect says they have imposter syndrome. And I think that goes from, Brad Pitt all the way down to someone who's just like you know, an extra. So yeah,
totally.
I think that's all like super, super important.
Yeah, and I was at this Q&A where it was like all 12 Oscar nominated screenwriters, and essentially they just went down the list with a microphone just being like, I think it's kind of an accident that I'm here. Like
Yeah,
next guy,
totally.
he's
Yeah.
like, I probably
You got
shouldn't
the
be
wrong
here. It's
guy.
like literally just
Yeah,
every single one's like imposter
dude.
syndrome. Yeah.
I mean, that's cool. It means you're in the right group, like I feel like that's real.
You mentioned feeling like film can be one of the most like emotion um, of the art forms. It can move you a lot. Is there any films that you have enjoyed a lot in the past like 20 years or so that stick out to you or meant something to you?
Um, Gosh, that's a good question. That now puts me on the spot. What
I,
have I loved the
I'm
last?
terrible at answering this, and I've
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
prepared
mean,
this, but
um,
just kind of curious what you enjoy. But,
I tend to I like documentaries. I think that's probably just also I'm getting older and I'm wanting to learn more. But um and then I tend to like um no, I think I like almost everything. But I do like lately I'm finding myself putting on documentaries.
yeah.
Um I watched one that was you might actually know the director. Just blanking on his name, but I watched this film called uh After Death. And it's like it's Angel put it out actually, but it's a really interesting. I went into it really kind of like
Is that Jen Jacobs? Is he the director?
no,
No,
it's
okay.
a no, I would know his name. It's interesting. He emailed
I've
on
heard
the
of
day of
this.
my yeah, it's really cool. He emailed me on the day of my mom's funeral out of the blue. I didn't know this guy, and he was like, "Hey, I'm in
Whoa.
town screening my film, and
Hmm.
I'd love to stop by. Like, do you guys, sell stuff from your studio?" I was like, "Oh, I'm actually out of town." But he was like, he had the link to his film, and it was like this film about the afterlife where he basically interviews all these people and you know near death, after death stories, experiences. There, people just whatever. There's just kind of like I don't know what to think. But this is a really, I love how he did it. Which was the production was really fantastic, and the effects and everything were great. The storytelling was great, but um, that's the first thing that came to mind when you just asked me if anything's
Hmm.
moved me, because it was like right when I was thinking about my mom in the afterlife, like all that stuff was like, where's mom? What's mom
Yeah.
doing right now? And then I watched that and it was like really moving to see how these people from all different walks of life and beliefs all had the same story.
That's
And
cool.
I've always been hesitant to believe a lot of like this kind of stuff. And I'm finding myself older I get more open to it because I'm just seeing it in my life.
Yeah.
Um, whether, I was never a signs and wonders guy. I'm still not, but like I'm opening myself up to more of that kind of like, oh, maybe God's, you know, giving us a peek at something. So anyways, that my answer
Totally.
is that I believe it's called After Death.
Cool.
And yeah, it's really cool.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing
But
that.
I want to find out more about your films. You can tell me later if you want, but I would love to know more about what you made.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. We actually just did I guess it's a private screening of this short film, Flesh and Blood. So it's a psychological thriller, but I don't know if people will pick up on this, but it's for sure inspired by Ephesians 6:12. Our fight is not
Mm,
against flesh and blood, and
yeah. Okay.
sort of deals with like mental health or spiritual, and it's about a little girl and a story about healing, kind of. So,
Cool.
but
Is
yeah,
it
it's kind of
online or is it still being?
it's not no. So it's
Okay.
doing the festivals and stuff. So it
Okay.
kind of has to. I think we're at
Okay.
premiering at Scream Fest in LA, October. But then I think it's gonna be in a lot of festivals around the U.S. So I'm just gonna jump in real quick. I just mentioned the premiere of our short film Flesh and Blood. So it's gonna be screening at this world famous Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, October 13th, 7:15 p.m. It is a big theater. It will definitely sell out. So If you're interested in going, you can go to our film's website. It's prodigal.la/film. Yeah, on there you can see more about the film, where to get tickets, about the theater, and there's also like a sign up to be notified of all screenings coming, which is kind of a good way to track it. So that will be like screenings in theaters as well as like online screenings eventually down the road. So it's a great way to track the project and not miss anything. Once again, go to prodigal.la/film. Okay, back to the show. But that's the project I felt like God was calling me to do. And I
Cool.
was
Okay.
like, at one point I was like, oh, when I was really young, I was like, I'm going to make Christian films. And then, of course, another age, I was like, that's the last thing I'm ever going to do.
Yeah,
Like, they're
sure,
awful.
sure.
And then it's funny as full circle feeling like, oh, don't try to make Christian films, but like, just honestly let your influences spill in, and it's been cool to see how that's played out. But
Yeah, I think there's like some really cool stuff happening in that world. That's just, we might have like rolled our eyes years ago, but I think there's just amazing, and there's companies that are now putting money into it, and it's great. So
totally.
yeah.
Kind of along those lines, actually, we have seen some good stuff. We've also probably seen some stuff that has like felt false to us as well. Do you feel like there's anything that stands in the way of some of the quote Christian content you see, like whether it be the music or film?
Mhm.
Do you have an opinion on that, or any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think like, I mean, definitely I've been opinionated in the past, just you kind of like, I remember going to the Christian bookstore and so much just kind of crappy stuff was,
Yeah,
was kind of sold on to Christians, and just kind of like, okay, well, if we're like, worshiping the, creator of the universe, this is what we're making, So I do think like there's more of an openness, going back to TK, Tim Keller,
yeah,
his thing was like, people genuinely don't care what you believe if it's good, if you're making something good or you're writing something that's good. It's like, I think some of that now is more like it could get weird and twisted because of our cultural moment. But I do think that like
yeah,
in general, if I'm offering something that's beautiful and really well done, you'll get a chance to have it looked at, to have someone watch it. I think there's some studios out there now that are like willing to make really great content that are getting more kind of like mainstream recognition, which is awesome.
totally.
I think letting artists have more of a say, I think with certain things, I think that happens too a lot, is that, if you've got all these producers and executive producers and money's coming from here and from here, there's everyone wants to say, and
Yeah,
it's like the rise of Skywalker, where everyone wanted to,
yeah,
all their story beats, and and it becomes a mess. So I think like if you know truly kind of like more artist led, um well produced, well funded projects, I think it's just like really cool because I'm seeing some of that stuff happen. And um perfect example is Forever Green. We were just talking about Nathan and Jeremy, who worked on this film that was like, basically, I mean, they did it for free for 5 years. They used Disney's equipment, and it was 100% artist developed, and it's just like one of the most special, beautiful things ever. And it does have a gospel allegory to it, but like you could just watch that, and I mean, it's Iron Giant, right? I mean, you
yeah,
don't, like, I think if you so many films have a gospel message that are just accidental. This one just happens to be not. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm
That's good.
optimistic for sure. But
Me
yeah, I
too.
think in the past, it's kind of like, I kind of equate it to like at a small church and you have a worship band, and like they're just kind of like, hey, whoever wants to be in the band, let's
Yeah.
play. And it's terrible, but it's like people who love the Lord.
Yeah,
I feel like for a long
totally.
time that was Christian,
Yeah,
media was like, hey, he can draw, let's have him do a movie poster or whatever. So
totally.
as opposed to just kind of like, I think the quality of work now is just like amazing. I think there's a lot of believers in the arts now too that are just kind of like, yeah, let's make something really, really great for the world.
Totally.
So
I know. I feel like it's cool. I feel like a generation of people who grew up with some of feeling that way about Christian are now
yeah.
have been working on their craft for
Yeah,
decades,
totally,
and it's like
agreed,
it's really
man.
cool to see.
It's astonishing how many folks I meet in this world that it came from the church. Whether they've many have left the church, but it's like
Yeah.
a lot. And I think that says something too about just kind of like, I don't know. once you leave your parents' house and kind of like what happens after that is kind of a topic for another day. But like, yeah, it's interesting. And I think you're right. There's a lot of people like, hey, we can do better than Salty. I don't know if you remember Salty. I'm 50, but Salty was like a singing Bible.
Okay.
So it's like, so it was just kind of like this, as a kid, it was like great. I loved it, but it was like the one thing that we listened to in the house. It was like,
That's
okay,
funny.
yeah.
I like it. I want to respect your time. I have one last question. If you feel like there's something God is kind of currently calling you towards, whether it's, I mean, just even if it's not art related or if it is, either way, but something you feel called to.
Yeah, I think like a handful of things. I think that like I was mentioning before how I'm kind of now overseeing many projects and creative directing with companies and people and kind of like all those years that I spent head down working on stuff um, have proved to be kind of beneficial now in this time of my life because I'm now kind of I'm being hired on some level for my mind as opposed to just kind of like what I was, you know, illustrating. So that kind of springboards into just like, okay, cool. Like maybe we could have more people helping out with Invisible Creature and take on different things and cool, So there's that. I also like I'm seeing I'm having a desire to help young creatives. And we're kind of putting like we're starting to kind of like put ideas around what that could be.
Cool.
But like kind of like a scholarship fund for young artists that want to make things. We're kind of we're still working on that. We'll announce it probably next year. But like um, you were talking where you actually asked me a question about just like, hey, you guys seem to just make things and just put it out there. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know how to even start that and don't have the funds. And we, over the 25 years have developed some really cool friendships and know some really amazing people. And um, I think it'd be cool to help kind of walk alongside young creatives to kind of get their ideas made. And I have a heart too for young artists that are believers that are just like, this world's crazy, man. Like where do I start? Do I leave this job if they're doing like just all these kind of questions? And I think uh, I'm finding myself just wanting to kind of like dig into that space more. I don't, we'll see
Totally.
kind of like what happens. But yeah, I'm having like I'm having the time of my life, honestly, just like getting to work on just some fun stuff. And I don't know where the Lord has me going right now, but I definitely feel like I'm entering kind of into that like second chapter of career life stuff, which is like has been really cool. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could, maybe the Christianese language of it is, like discipleship or
Yeah.
shepherding or whatever.
Yep.
But I think that's even for myself, I'm like, man, being in LA and being like a believer who was so isolated and lonely, like
Yeah.
now every Tuesday we have our community group and we make a home cooked meal. And it's like to be this almost like mom and dad, just a faithful
Mm-hmm.
presence. LA people leave
Yeah.
all the time, So just to be like have a
Yeah. Yeah.
house and you can always come and eat and, share.
It's
And
huge.
I feel like it's often the things that we experience along the way that we kind of feel called to help
Yeah,
that
dude,
layer,
100%. 100%. And in the end, it's like, well, gosh, man, that thing is like what you just said, having a meal at your house, that's maybe more important than the stuff you're working on at work. So it's just
Totally.
like it's really like it's a cool thing to actually get to a point where you can acknowledge that.
Yeah, it's
So
cool.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Can I is it cool if I close this out in a little prayer for you?
Yeah, for
You
sure.
cool? Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Lord, I thank you for the work you've done in Don's life, and I just thank you for his family. I pray a blessing over his family and his kids, his wife. Pray that you would just empower him to hear you and be led by you, like you have continued to. And yeah, just even that his community could be one that is just aligned and putting you first and everything that comes with that, Father. And I thank you that his desire to share and to disciple and teach and just to be a faithful presence. And yeah, I just pray that he would just continue to see you more in all things, Lord, like he already is, Lord. I thank you for that and bless his family and his marriage. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, brother.